Namaste and welcome to the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, our network is headed into its 15th year and is listened to in over 30 countries. I would like to personally thank you for giving me the gift of your time, as it is my honor to hold space with you. And we're doing things just slightly differently this theme, I will say. And that is because usually I have a meditation episode and then dive into nutrition. However, this time around, we have a special upcoming treat from a former interviewee on Above the Ground and also a dear friend of mine and fellow yoga instructor, Anne. And I guess she moonlights as a yoga instructor. Her day job is very big and important. And I don't want to tread on that too much. We'll keep it a little bit of a secret, but she is going to be giving us a meditation this month. And so please stay tuned for that. And we will kind of flip flop what I usually do so that I can highlight her um, wonderful insights and, what she plans to bring to the table. But I don't want to give too many spoiler alerts to that. So we are going to talk about, well, let's be honest. We are talking about filling our cup and we're talking about what we're keeping as opposed to what we're purging and what serves us. And with the tongue-in-cheek idea of filling your cup, I thought, what better way to address taking care of oneself and one's health and the nutrition aspect of that than hydrating and talking about beverages that are healthy for you and kind of going over, everybody knows you're supposed to drink all the water, right? That goes without saying. But the kind of the pros and cons of the typical beverages that we drink, the options that are presented to us on a regular basis, and just starting to swap out some healthy choices for maybe some less healthy choices. And whenever you're talking about beverages and health and wellness, the most important thing, other than drink your water, is to think about sugar content. When it comes to our beverages, the most unhealthy aspect, 9 times out of 10, is going to be the content of sugar. We're talking obviously about the usual suspects, sodas, processed fruit juices, even our favorite alcohol, wine, those types of things. Obviously, we'll talk about alcohol a little bit, but when it comes to just general hydration, what's going to counteract that? Sugar. The other thing that's going to counteract that is going to be caffeine. So there are healthy caffeinated choices, and while I've made lots of lifestyle choices in my nutrition and for my health, caffeine is one that I haven't cut out entirely, just simply because, goodness gracious, it gets me out of bed in the morning, and I'm sure there are many of us that do operate from that mentality. And again, making these choices and then choosing yourself and prioritizing your self-care, and prioritizing your health all comes from a space of enjoying your life to a certain extent and not making so many limitations around yourself that you just, hate your day or wake up in the morning miserable because you can't have your coffee. There is an element at play always of balance and always of enjoying this one precious, fragile, delicate life that we all have. So, keeping that in mind and trying to make choices that sustain that precious life that we all have and also allow us to enjoy it, but make each day enjoyable and just swap out those little decisions that don't matter that much to us, that aren't deal breakers for us. Like maybe your coffee in the morning is a deal breaker. When I first went paleo, I did switch to tea, and I did that for a few months and it wasn't the same. And I powered through and it was okay, but it wasn't the same. I will say that for me, I am able to drink black tea, or in my preference is Earl Grey, but black tea straight as opposed to adding cream, although sometimes I will add some cream. And it is a non-dairy variety. But, if your coffee is what brings you joy in the morning, have your coffee. There are ways to counteract and make it a little healthier. One of the big things for me was getting off the dairy half and half in my coffee boat that I've been on my entire life. And that was one of the main problems for me, was coffee didn't taste the same with a non-dairy creamer. And I finally found one. I will plug it. It is Nut Pods, and it's their half and half, not their shelf-stable creamer, but their actual half and half. And it is the closest thing to dairy that I have found. Obviously, it's It's not the same, but it's pretty stinking close. And if you shake it up, it gets a little bit frothy and almost mimics a latte. So it does have, while it might not taste exactly the same, it does add a little bit of a benefit where the half and half does not. I'm not just talking about health wise, but aesthetically. So again, that's just one example. And when we're talking about caffeine, coffee, black tea, both very healthy choices, especially black, right? Like if they're just in their raw natural state, they are the healthiest for you. They have antioxidants. Even the caffeine can serve to boost your metabolism a little bit. So it's not 100% all bad. But it's what we add to it. So a lot of times, people will add their creams and they'll add their sugars and they'll take what is essentially a true purest healthy beverage and just, ruin it. And that is, what comes to play for a lot of our beverage choices. We may opt for a juice and think that we're doing something healthy for us, but then in essence, we're choosing, I won't, begrudge companies, but unless you're going with the much tartar options and tartar, not tartar, but tartar, more tart options of, the organic, pure, 100% juice, no sugar added, those can be a little bit tough to swallow. Not all of them taste as good as your, out of the refrigerated section orange juices or um, your cranberry juices that say cranberry cocktail on them, for example. So a lot of those times they have a lot of added sugar and you're actually doing yourself a little bit of a disservice. So making those healthy swaps, maybe, instead of buying a sugary fruit juice, you buy the straight up organic tart juice and add a little bit of raw honey to it, as opposed to allowing those processed sugars and that extra processing into the actual beverage itself. Does it take a little bit of extra effort? Yes, it does. Is it okay if you have the time? Is it an option that will give you the sweetness without necessarily, adding to the negative sugar content? Raw honey, other than, issues with potential glycemic issues, is probably the healthiest sugar or sweetener that you can have. And the reason for that is due to, all of the health benefits, including, let's say that you're lucky enough to have local honey. If you have allergies, honey can help with allergies. It kind of gives you a little bit of antibodies to pollen. Again, it has to be local for that to be true, but there's antibacterial benefits, there's antioxidant benefits. Honey is a natural food source. And so, anytime I'm getting sick, I will make honey lemon water. If you are under the weather, it's one of my favorite things to do, a little bit of warm water, honey, and lemon. Now, I will say that I have heard in Ayurveda that warming honey can actually be detrimental. That something about the process of actually warming it can change the chemistry of it a little bit, so it's not quite as healthy. But let's be honest, it's still better than most, if not all, of the alternatives when it comes to processing and when it comes to anything except, again, for glycemic index, because it is not one of the lowest glycemic indexes. But I do think that if you are using things in moderation, that the health benefits may outweigh the glycemic index lack of benefit simply due to the amount consumed. And again, those fringe benefits, if you're local, honey is accessible to you to help with, again, your health, your immune system, your antibodies. It's the bees like to make it. We like to drink it. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. Again, unless you have very specific reasons why not. So I think that honey in your water, honey in your organic juice as opposed to a sugar sweetened juice. I think that not enough things can be said about adding honey to your beverages as opposed to sugar. As a natural, healthy alternative. Now, when we're talking about, other things that you might be able to add, when we're talking about our hydration needs and we're talking about water, a lot of people will, get the pushback of, well, I don't like plain water, etc. Add a little bit of lemon. I always have a bottle of straight up, again, the organic, comes in a glass bottle, has nothing added to it. It's tart is not even the right word, of lemon juice. And I start my morning every day, as I've mentioned before, with a little bit of lemon juice. I don't put honey in that, but even as the day moves forward, if I bring a bottle of water out with me, I will add just a little bit of splash of lemon juice to it. The other thing that I like to do, if you can find, it has to be like asterisk, massive exclamation point. You can't get a regular essential oil, lavender oil, because 9 times out of 10, they are not edible. But if you have a local lavender farm, or if you look specifically for edible lavender, much like the lavender that you get in an Herbes de Provence seasoning, or you could, in theory, even use actual lavender. But a little bit of edible lavender essential oil, and I mean a little, like 1 drop for a large water bottle is plenty. Otherwise, it can get, it's very concentrated, it's very overwhelming. But I love to add 1 drop of lavender edible essential oil, not regular essential oil. Do not drink regular lavender essential oil ever. Giant disclaimer. But 1 drop with the lemon is just, it's very refreshing. It's very calming. I very much enjoy it. And it's a way to, again, bring a little bit of interest to your water as you hydrate throughout your day. So another way, again, as we talk about things that you can do to stay hydrated and to make sure that you are filling your cup with things that are actually beneficial for you. So as we talk about water, as we talk about things that you can add into your water, and we're talking about, we talked a little bit about caffeine content. Black and green tea are 2 wonderful options. To talk a little bit about green tea, if you're going to go that route, one of my favorites is going to be the matcha. Matcha green tea is amazing. And what I like to do actually is put it in protein shakes as well, or, any kind of smoothie. As it is in powder form, it is definitely going to be packed full of antioxidants. As long as caffeine is not an issue for you, it's a great way to have a little bit of a pick me up in the afternoon. And generally, it processes, for me at least, a little more quickly than some of the black tea or black coffee, which tends to stay in my system and keeps me awake longer, where I wouldn't necessarily have coffee at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon or evening, but I could probably have a little bit of matcha in my smoothie around that time. So again, another option in green tea, whether in matcha form or in, regular loose leaf form, is packed full of antioxidants. It's packed full of good things for you if you partake in caffeine, and it can give you a needed boost in the afternoon that may not be as aggressive as, let's say, the caffeine in a black tea or in a black coffee. And let's just be honest, sometimes we all need a little bit of boost in the afternoon, right? So again, options, and these are healthy options. And, depending on how you take your tea, I find that green tea is a little bit, it doesn't require as much. Like I never want to put cream in my green tea. I don't need honey in my green tea. There is some literature on lemon and green tea helping to boost the efficacy of some of the absorption of the green tea. So I do recommend that, if you do have some green tea, that you put a little shot of lemon juice in there. Again, if that's something that calls to you, that you feel you could take some benefit from, just another option. And then talking about our smoothies, right? So one of my favorite, this is the base for all of my smoothies, is coconut water. And when we're talking about hydration, we're talking about healthy options for hydration. A lot of athletes will go to your aids, right? Your aids, ADE. And they are, sometimes, even certain things, and I will say a couple brand names, but even certain things like Pedialyte, right? If you're sick, under the weather, you've gone through a stomach issue, or, you've been unwell, sometimes, coconut water won't cut it, and you may need to actually go for those specifically formulated hydrating options, such as your quote unquote ADEs, your aids, or your Pedialytes and that sort of thing. And I generally tend towards a Pedialyte if I'm in that situation, just because I feel like when things are processed for the wee ones, they happen to be a little gentler, a little more thoughtful in their processing. That's just me. I'm not going to make any claims about that, other than that's kind of the way my brain works. But to the coconut water aspect, when we're talking about just basic hydration and, like, let's say going for a workout, going to the gym, that kind of a thing, losing some of that sodium, some of the potassium. It's got tons of potassium. It's great for that. Better than a banana, and slightly lower sugar, depending on how green the banana is. So there is a little bit of sugar content in coconut water. It's natural sugar, but again, things to be cognizant of. It tracks along the lines of those organic generally glass bottled, low sugar options. So again, anytime you consume a fruit beverage, it's going to have an element of sugar to it. Coconut water does have a lot of electrolytes and it does help to replenish. So I love it. One of the reasons I like it for smoothies specifically is anything you put in it is going to cover up the taste, right? So whether it is a cold press, whether it's got a little bit extra, I know there's a certain brand that has, a cold pressed option that actually has a little bit of like the white factor to it, almost like a coconut milk, but still much thinner. If I make a protein shake or a smoothie of any kind with either, whether it's a coconut milk, almond milk, whatever, any of those milks, it tends to be overly thick for my personal preference. What I love about coconut water is it's thicker than regular water. It does have all of those electrolytes built into it naturally occurring. But it allows me to really focus on the taste of whatever I'm using in the smoothie, and it doesn't really come up very quote unquote coconutty. So I can use a chocolate protein powder. I can throw matcha in there if I want to. I know that might sound weird, but chocolate and matcha is not a terrible combination, and matcha and vanilla is not a terrible combination either. So when you're making bases, it really is kind of like a lesser evil when you're using regular coconut water because the flavor of it is completely benign when it comes to adding any addition, whether you go fruit smoothie and you add blueberries, let's say you add some spinach, maybe you add some spirulina. Those are all great options. And then you're really kind of covering up the taste of the coconut water and it's not getting that coconutty flavor. Whereas if you wanted to go completely another way and throw some peanut butter in there, let's say you're not paleo and you want a little extra protein boost, you do peanut butter, you do a chocolate protein powder, you're still not going to get any interference from that as a solid base. So one of the things that I like to throw out there is that coconut water is my absolute favorite base for any sort of smoothie, whether it be protein, fruit, or otherwise. And even just, to bring to the gym if you prefer over any kind of other potential beverage aid, again, if you will. It's a natural option. And I always tend to lean towards those because, again, when we're talking about nutrition and we're talking about taking care of your body and your health, the less processed, the better, right? At the end of the day, if the ingredient list is coconut water, that's great versus kind of the alternatives, right? So I always look towards minimal ingredients, minimal processing whenever possible, so that you know that you're getting as close to sticking a straw in a coconut as you possibly can. So again, smoothies, protein shakes, these are great ways to get the nutrients that you need. It's really hard for us to get our natural servings of fruits and vegetables every day. There's so many different options for green powders, fruit powders, dehydrated, even probiotics, prebiotics, protein shakes. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so I'm a big fan of smoothies and shakes as a way to supplement your diet and really try to target meeting some of those, daily quote unquote, and for those listening, goals of targeting your fruits and vegetables, right? Because it's not like all of us can just sit and munch on carrots all day long. That may not be a feasible option. And they definitely help for those slumps in the afternoon. They are portable, and I am an on the go human. So I remember having a discussion with a doctor of mine when we were talking about sugar content. And, I said, but bananas are so portable. Like they're just the easiest thing to grab and be out the door. And he said, yes, but they're highest in sugar. And I said, yeah, no, I know you're right. I know you're right. So protein shakes are great if you can get one of those shaker bottles and bring them with you, throw them in the fridge. They're a great way to make it through that afternoon slump, to take off any cravings in between meals, or meal replacement, depending on, what your goals are and, what your lifestyle is like. So things to consider. And again, when we're talking about all these different options, I'm a big proponent of getting real blueberries, right, and putting them in coconut water as opposed to drinking a juice. I just feel like, again, you're getting the whole food, you're getting the whole fruit. It takes a little bit of extra effort on your part. Absolutely, it does. But then you're able to add all sorts of things. And I guess if you're processing it, you're the one doing the processing. So you have a little bit more of an element of awareness as to what is going into what you're consuming. And that's what it's all about, is awareness of your consumption and what you are filling your cup with. So one of the things that I have to, and I will do one more plug because I have to say I love them. Friends of mine love it, and it has replaced coffee for me in a certain way. Maybe not replaced, but definitely come into my morning routine and my evening routine. And it takes us on a whole other kind of direction when it comes to, ways to enhance your health with beverages, and that are adaptogens, right? So I've been using an adaptogen based protein shake, protein powder for a long time now, and we're talking about mushroom adaptogens. Your reishis, your lion's mane, all those, and they've been getting a lot of press recently. And I think that there's a valid reason as for why that is. So one of these have come out a lot, I believe, since COVID really have exploded on the scene. But I'm going to plug it, and I'm going to say that RYZE Rise is one of has become a staple in my cupboard and cabinet. And the reason for that is not only is the mushroom coffee, because there is a little bit of coffee in the mushroom powder, it does not taste like coffee. It is definitely potentially an acquired taste, and I encourage you to try it. But I definitely I fell in love with it. Whatever flavor you want to call it, it's definitely earthy. I do put raw honey in it. I do add a little bit of that nut pod non-dairy creamer that I mentioned into it. And it is just delicious. It does froth up. It's lovely. It's quick. It's easy. I crave it. I can drink that in the afternoon again because it's got more adaptogens than caffeine. Not no caffeine, but again, its focus is on the health and wellness and enhancing the body naturally. But beyond that, they also have a matcha, I believe. Beyond that, their sleepy time hot cocoa and cocoa in general is amazing. It is one of the few things that has helped me to fall asleep quickly, effortlessly, to stay asleep, and potentially not all night long, but definitely for a few hours, and to not wake up, like I just took 2 Advil PM and feel that kind of groggy hangover aspect. So I definitely, if you're interested at all, if you have any trouble falling asleep, mainly, if you have a mind that spins and spins, which I know I do, and many of us may, I would highly recommend looking into it. And it's got all sorts of goodies in it, but reishi is the mushroom at hand for their hot cocoa. Cocoa powder obviously has its own host of health benefits, including, again, antioxidants. Whenever you're talking about drinkable health benefits, antioxidants are going to be like the big title word, the main thing that you're able to garner and gain through drinking and hydrating with the various options that we find. And so I definitely highly recommend looking into it. It's got theanine, it's got L-glutamine, it's got very, very many different benefits all wrapped into one very delicious package. So it's become my evening routine, and I am very grateful for it because it has definitely helped me fall asleep, stay asleep, fall back asleep. It's just truly, truly wonderful. So I can't recommend that enough. And when we're talking about going to sleep, another tea that we have not touched on yet, one of my favorites, chamomile. Can't go wrong with your chamomile. It is restorative. It is relaxing for most people without issue. It is definitely one of the ones that will help to kind of get you into your parasympathetic nervous system, calm and ease the mind. And another thing to talk about when we're talking about the flip side, right? So the opposite of the caffeine is the relaxation aspect, and that will yield us into a conversation, a brief touch on alcohol. And obviously, if you're going to consume, there are a few that are definitely going to be better than any of the others. And the main one that I'm going to talk about is red wine, obviously for the antioxidants, for the sugar content, not so much, but for the antioxidants, for stimulating, I won't say blood flow, but for, that idea of kind of keeping your heart healthy. There's a lot of benefit to red wine that may or may not, balance out the negatives of the alcohol consumption. So one of the healthier choices if you're going to choose to partake in that. And then again, when it comes to alcohol, the healthier options are always going to be less sugar. So unfortunately, when you're talking about that, it's mainly going to be the hard alcohol, which is going to be like your clear, your vodkas, your gins, that kind of a thing. But again, honestly, when we're talking about health benefits, I have to stand behind the red wine being the main one. I won't say the only one, but kind of the best option of the bunch. Um, wine in general, but red wine specifically has the most antioxidants and most health benefits to it. When we're talking about relaxation, we're talking about, like I said, the sleepy time cocoa, your chamomile tea. Another, there's been a big uptick recently in CBD and CBD beverages, and even some THC beverages, which definitely are gonna relax you. But I have to say that there's a lot of benefit to CBD for relaxation, for restorative, and to kind of get the water soluble health benefits of CBD is again similarly to adaptogens. And I will say it really warms my heart to see adaptogen wines coming out and all of these non-alcoholic alternatives for people really starting, whether they're CBD, adaptogens, just ways for people to take that edge off without having to lean on a crutch of alcohol. And I really think that, I love to see that, we're trending in that direction, that we're getting options, that people are really starting to take their health and wellness into account. I think it's beautiful, and I really just want to support that. And like I said, CBD is one wonderful way to do that. The adaptogens, there's, like I said, there's a host of non-alcoholic wines and beers and things like that, but there's also a host of these mushroom-based adaptogen, we'll call them wines, beverages, that claim to take kind of the edge off, and without the hangover and without the potential lack of consciousness that can come from maybe being overserved, if you will, when we're talking about actual alcohol. So healthier choices, right? That's what this is all about. What are you filling your cup with? What are you filling your cup with? And what rings true for you? I've been blessed to not have a super big kind of stronghold in sodas. I've never been a huge soda drinker. I know that a lot of people are. And again, unfortunately, it's just empty calories. It's empty sugar. Sometimes it's great, every once in a while, you have a root beer float and it's delicious. And, like I said, you have to enjoy your life. It's all about balance. But at the end of the day, um, I've become kind of a big fan of seltzer options, just as quick, easy go-tos. And you have to be careful with those as well. Like when we're talking about sodium content, we're talking about processing and what's going into them. But like I said, there has to be balance. You can't just live all the time without having a little bit of a reprieve and some enjoyment. So conscious choices of what fills your cup, and making sure that you know what you're putting into your body and that you care, right? The main thing is you have to care enough about your own well-being, health, what serves you, and what makes your body feel good. So I will share that there are certain, I believe for me, it's citric acid, but there are certain seltzers that have citric acid as the base, and I get horrible heartburn when I drink them. There are certain other options that do not, and I can drink them and I feel fine and wonderful. So know your body is always going to be my number one. Know yourself, and practice accordingly when it comes to whether it's caffeine, whether it's alcohol, whether it's citric acid, whether it's adaptogens or not. These are all things that are going to come into play for you as you go through your day and you make these choices. What I will say is that when we're talking about what we keep in our refrigerator, what we keep in our home, the choices that we make, it's all about being mindful and conscious. And once you are mindful and conscious of your choices and of the decisions that you're making for your body and for your health, you will start to see a snowball effect roll into your existence about making conscious choices about other aspects, whether it's your emotional and physical health and wellness, right? Whether it's your mental state, starting to prioritize yourself, starting to practice self-care in all ways, and putting yourself first. But it starts right with making those choices, to paying attention to what fills your cup and what brings you joy, what you enjoy, your morning coffee, for example, what you need, like your quote unquote 8 glasses of water a day, whether it's lemon water, whether it's coconut water, whether it's basic water, whether you purchase vitamin and mineral packets, whether you purchase hydration packets to add to your water to give them a little bit of flavor. Um, Whatever it is, make sure that it is in alignment with what you need, what your body needs, and what serves you in that moment. And it may change day to day, month to month. Meet yourself where you are and don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect, because at the end of the day, none of us are. None of us are perfect, and we can make the best choices all the time and we'll still have setbacks, and that's okay. But the point is to forgive yourself, meet yourself where you are, and choose a little bit better the next time you have that option. So I hope that our little chat on beverages and ways to fill your cup or your mug, because I think we talked a lot more about mug filling than cup filling, but I hope that you have taken a couple ideas from this. And I do hope that it inspires you to drink a little more honey and a little less processed sugar. Because I hope that we give the bees something to do, because we need our bees and we love our bees and they are keeping the world go round. So I encourage you to support your local bees by purchasing their hard worked for honey and adding it to, whether it be your water, whether it be your tea, whether it be your coffee, whatever it might be. Um, I hope that whatever choice you make for yourself is for your highest and best good always, when it comes to your health, wellness, nutrition, hydration, or otherwise. And I just want to say that I appreciate each and every one of you for sharing your space with me. And so please feel free to share the same with your loved ones. For more goodness, follow me on all the socials at Above the Ground Podcast, or visit my website, airsaboveyoga.com. And as always, check out my other episodes and all my amazing sisters at divasthatcare.com. Find us all on SoundCloud, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple, and anywhere else you may feel guided. Again, my name is Gia-Raquel Rose, owner of Airs Above Yoga, and you are listening to Above the Ground podcast, where every day is a good one.